welcome to World News on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. As markets continue to tumble, European trade ministers meet in Luxembourg to discuss the EU's response to Donald Trump's tariffs. Our correspondent Escalates is at the meeting and has the latest.
Well, EU trade ministers are gathered here in Luxembourg today to agree on a common response to these Trump tariffs. We've seen strong statements from the ministers on their way in, but I want to start by giving you a perspective from the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He tweeted in the last couple of hours saying that the reaction to this potential tariff war was predictable, that the stock market earthquake from Japan through Europe to America must be survived without nervous decisions. Clearly, they're an indication of what Poland's view is of the matter, not to react too quickly, too nervously, with too much spontaneity to these tariffs. No knee-jerk reactions from Europe. That's the perspective from Poland. We've also heard from Michał Baranowski, the Deputy Minister here in Luxembourg from Poland. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
There was no tariffs like we have seen the past week, really for the last 100 years. Tariffs 100 years ago led to worsening of Great Depression, which in the end caused loss of millions of jobs, led to political extremism, and in fact many historians point to the sources in the Great Depression of international conflict. So this is what's at stake. I hope that we all will learn from history. This is why the Polish presidency of the EU Council has decided to call this extraordinary trade ministerial in order to really hear member states talk with each other and give the European Commission a guidance on how to respond to the tariffs, so-called reciprocal tariffs imposed last week by the United States.
So that stark warning about the Great Depression from the Polish minister here in Luxembourg today, that will be on the minds of a lot of the ministers here, but they still need to coordinate their response. And one of the proposals will come from the European Commission. Maroš Šefčovic, the Trade Commissioner, is also here briefing ministers, getting the temperature of member states to be able to coordinate and decide on a common European response. Alex Cadier, TVP World, Luxembourg.
The looming global trade war caused by blanket tariffs imposed by the United States and retaliatory measures taken by China are a paradigm shift for global trade, warns EU Commissioner Maroš Šefčovic.
What we are going to discuss is how to position Europe in what I would describe as a paradigm shift of the global trading system. So I'm very glad that I would have the opportunity to inform and debrief my colleagues, the ministers, on the ongoing contacts with my American partners. I will also inform them about my recent visit to China. And of course, we will also focus our discussion on the next steps, how to prepare our next move in relation vis-à-vis United States.
So far, the approach that we have seen is perhaps a little bit too much shoot first, talk later. I hope that we can switch to negotiations as soon as possible, serious negotiations with the United States, because again, the transatlantic economic relationship is the biggest one in the world.
Short-term consequences of the tariffs announced last week are becoming clearer on Monday as stock exchanges worldwide continue to plummet. Chinese indices saw sharp decreases for the first time as they closed on Monday due to a holiday. The Japanese and Taiwanese stock exchanges were also significantly down upon opening. European stock markets continued their free fall at the start of trading on Monday. Germany's DAX and France's CAC 40 indices were almost down 6%, while the Warsaw Stock Exchange opened almost 2.9% lower. The Warsaw Index already lost over 6% upon closing on Friday. Investors are fearing a global trade war after President Donald Trump announced blanket tariffs for goods imported into the United States. China has already announced heavy countermeasures. Meanwhile, American markets have seen the sharpest stock decline since 2020, the year of the COVID pandemic. The gaps in Europe's military arsenal are massive compared to Russia's. That's why a new intergovernmental institution tasked with ensuring European defence money is spent wisely is being pitched as an option to fix the crisis. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has more from Brussels.
Poland's Finance Minister Andrzej Domanski commissioned a Belgian think tank, Bruegel, to investigate how to fix some of the major issues regarding Europe's defensive financing as well as its industry. Now, according to a paper which was published on Monday morning, there are two options which could address some of those major issues, which include fragmentation, low order numbers, as well as home bias. Now, the first option, which has less teeth, is an EU-wide mechanism which would look at fixing some of the major issues on a continental basis. The second option, however, is what is being recommended by that think tank. Now, this would be an intergovernmental institution which would address some of the country-specific needs. It would also have the option to include non-EU partners such as the UK, which is a massive producer of military arms. But these options are on the table and will be discussed on Friday and Saturday at an ECOFIN meeting in Warsaw. We're expecting those 27 trade and finance ministers to discuss this further. We know that certain countries such as Spain and Belgium may perhaps be a little bit more reticent to use some of the money earmarked by the EU as part of its Rearm Europe push to spend on shoring up its military capabilities. But we know that Poland wants to allocate at least 5% of its GDP next year to beef up its military portfolio. So we'll wait and see which option they prefer, and we'll discuss later this week. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
Ukraine will send a delegation to the United States next week to begin talks on a new draft agreement granting the U.S. access to Ukraine's mineral resources. The delegation will consist of officials representing the country's foreign affairs, justice, economy and finance ministries.
Speaking to the Associated Press, Ukrainian Economy Minister Yulia Svyrydenko addressed the current situation surrounding the mineral deal. Svyrydenko said that what we have now only reflects the position of the US Treasury. The Ukrainian minister added that the new US proposal still includes plans for a fund or joint investment between the two countries. The current draft, which was leaked online, contains more details, but it remains unclear how much control Ukraine would retain over the fund.
Emergency workers in Kyiv continue to clear the rubble of a building that was damaged in a Russian missile strike on Sunday morning. The attack on the Ukrainian capital killed one person and injured 3 more.
The offices of the state-owned international broadcasting multimedia platform of Ukraine were severely damaged in the assault. According to reports by the Ukrainian Air Force, the Russians launched 23 missiles and 109 drones at Ukraine, targeting several regions of the country. The strikes come as the pace of the Russian offensive in Ukraine is steadily decreasing. According to the latest report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russian forces advanced by only 143 square kilometers in the past month, the lowest figure of the past 5 months.
Russian sensors have been discovered in the waters surrounding Britain, according to a report by the Sunday Times. The sensors are believed to be part of an effort to spy on the UK's nuclear submarine fleet.
The British military discovered several sensors after they washed ashore, with more being identified by the Royal Navy. The devices are believed to have been planted by Moscow to gather intelligence on 4 Vanguard submarines carrying British nuclear missiles. The Sunday Times investigation also revealed that unmanned Russian vehicles have been found near deep-sea communications cables. In addition, the report says there is credible evidence that super yachts owned by Russian oligarchs may have been used for underwater reconnaissance.
Polish President Andrzej Duda will travel to Estonia on Monday for a 3-day state visit. The aim of his trip is to strengthen relations between Warsaw and Tallinn, one of Poland's key partners in the Baltic Sea region.
During his official visit, the Polish head of state will hold talks with his Estonian counterpart, Alar Karis, as well as Prime Minister Kristen Michal and Lauri Hussar, the president of the Estonian parliament. Parliamentary cooperation, the security situation in the region, and joint actions within NATO and the European Union will be high on the agenda. Duda will also lay a wreath at the Monument of the War of Independence in a symbolic gesture underlining the shared history of the struggle for sovereignty and the importance of national independence in the context of the Russian threat in Eastern Europe.
Poland has stepped down controls on the borders with Slovakia, the Czech Republic and Germany to prevent the spread of foot and mouth disease. Fortunately, so far the country has not identified a single case of the virus. Poland reintroduced veterinary controls on its border with Germany on Friday. They were initially introduced in January after the source of the disease was detected in the neighboring country. 930 controls have so far been carried out, with only one suspicious transport turned away from the border. Serbia will form a new government by April 18th, according to President Aleksandar Vučić. He has also named Đuro Macut, a newcomer to politics, the country's prime minister designate.
Tensions are running high in Serbia as the country has until April 18th to form a new government and have it approved by parliament. Speaking to the media on Saturday, President Vučić nominated Đuro Macut, an endocrinologist with no political experience, to replace Prime Minister Vučević.
I propose to the National Assembly Dr. Đuro Macut as a candidate for Prime Minister of the Republic of Serbia.
President Vučić also described the challenges which the new government will face once formed.
The new government will be formed by Good Friday, and it will face some difficult tasks, such as resisting all pressure affecting regional policy, resolving the issue of tariffs with the US, accelerating the European path while at the same time preserving the nation's traditional friends in the East, as well as improving the level of foreign and domestic investment.
The previous Serbian government collapsed in March after months of widespread protests caused by a roof collapse at a train station in Novi Sad, which left 15 people killed. The incident fueled long-standing anger in Serbia over corruption and the alleged lack of oversight in construction projects.
Moving on to sports, Alexander Ovechkin made history on Sunday afternoon by becoming the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer. There were cheers of support in Washington and Moscow when the Russian capital star netted his 895th career goal.
The chasing days are done!
Wild scenes as Alex Ovechkin entered the record books, becoming the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer. The Russian forward put away his 895th career goal in a 4-1 loss for his Washington Capitals against the New York Islanders on Sunday. There were celebrations too in his homeland as fans in Moscow marked the moment. His support for President Putin, though, has caused controversy. Seen here on the right meeting the Russian president, his official Instagram profile picture shows the two of them together, despite Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. And on Monday, the Kremlin said Putin had sent his congratulations to Ovechkin. While the NHL has condemned the war, media have criticised Ovechkin's apparent lack of comment, despite having influence at home, a fact he highlighted at Sunday's post-match press conference.
I'm pretty sure right now in DC it's something's crazy happening because, yeah, but and especially at home in Russia, like right now, people celebrate.
He beat the previous record holder, Canadian icon Wayne Gretzky, who himself has caused controversy with his strong support of Donald Trump. Before the country faced large US trade tariffs, Trump joked that Gretzky could become the next governor of Canada, angering some north of the border. Beating Gretzky's record was once thought impossible. Ovechkin will now be setting the bar even higher.
And that wraps up World News at 2 p.m. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.